Hello, this is my Shadow Priest guide for patch 7.2. My name is Zikito. I've been part of the semi-hardcore and hardcore progression race for a very long time. Even though I have a lot of experience playing the game, does not mean I have the theoretical knowledge or integrity to teach and learn other people how they should be playing their classes. I do not theorycraft myself. My goal with this video is merely to present and visualize other people's work in an understandable way. In this video I'm going to cover the changes coming with the patch, the basic rotation for Shadow Priest, what talents you should be picking, stat priorities and trinkets, in what order you should be leveling your artifact weapon, and what relics you're looking for. Legendaries have been changed with patch 7.2, so we're gonna go over the new rankings so you know what legendaries you should be excited about. In the end of the video I'm going into more detail about how to min-max your Void Form, including power infusion and Shadow Fiend usage. The Shadow Priest rotation is divided into two parts, in Void Form and out of Void Form. Out of Void Form is very simple. Cast Mind Blast and Gul'dan, keep up both your dots, and Mind Flay in between. The goal here is to get back into Void Form as soon as possible. Once you get into Void Form, it gets a bit more complicated, but really not that hard once you try it a few times. Use your Void Torrent on cooldown. Void Bolt is your second priority. Mind Blast on cooldown. After that, keep up your dots. If nothing else to do, use your filler, Mind Flame. This knowledge should be enough for the new Shadow Priest, but as mentioned, later in the video I'll go into more detail on how to master the Shadow Priest. There's not much talent diversity at the moment for Shadow Priest. Twist of Fate is the obvious choice in the first row. Second and third, they're both utility and you can pick whatever suits you. I end up using Body and Soul and Mind Bomb most of the time. The fourth tier, Linger Insanity, is the only option. Void Ray could be picked in a few niche situations like Heavy Airy. 75 is a tough one. I'm not gonna go into much detail about the Zen Lane versus AS debate. The go-to is Zen Lane, but if you have very heavy crit, AS might give you better results. Power Infusion is the go-to in the 90th row. Misery is very valuable in dungeons and can be used in niche situations in raiding. I've seen people run Misery and Spellblade and Tychondrius. I am not a big fan of it myself though. In the final tier, Legacy is gonna be your choice. Surrender is its own beast and I love to play with it, but I'm not gonna go into much detail about it during this video. If you were to play Surrender, you'd go Rebuff Souls. Shadow Crash can be picked in dungeons or Heavy Airy. When it comes to stats, nothing has changed with patch 7.2. You still want 10k haste and 4k crit. After that you'd go for Mastery, before haste, before crit. One important thing to mention is that it's not that you'll see great increases once you reach 10k haste. It will get less valuable after 10k. A lot of people are misunderstanding this concept. They think they'll see big damage increases if they reach 10k. For Nighthold trinkets, you'd go for Whispers in the Dark and Fury of the Burning Sky. Metronome is also a great option, and if you have one at higher item level than the other two, you should use it. In the description you'll find a list of full trinket rankings. When it comes to relics, you want the same as in patch 7.15. The rankings you see in the screen are what you're aiming for. The DPS increase values are all taken from before the patch and might not be exactly the same values after the patch, but the order of priority is the same. First priority is Vampiric Touch damage, after that you want the Shadow with Pain damage, and so on. Make sure you pay attention to the weapon plus X values. These are what makes the rankings table relative. You use those to compare your options. For example, Vampiric Touch Relic is worth more than 3 weapon item levels, but you would take any item level increase over, let's say, Mind Shattering, which increases your Mind Blast damage. The AP grind is about to begin, and a lot of you are probably wondering in what order you should be leveling your artifact and where to place your AP you have regained from 54 traits. On your screen there is a visualization of the build path. I'll link it in the description as well. First you want the 10% damage and health increase trait to make up for losing 54 traits. After that you go to the two biggest traits as we just talked about, Touch of Darkness and To the Pain, buffing your dots. After that we go Creeping Shadows. When those three are done we can start on the new traits, increasing Shadow Fiend duration and so on. When we are done with all the normal traits we can go on to Concordance of Legionfall, the new Paragon journey. We do need to fill all of them up before we can do that though. Happy grinding everyone, and let's move on to legendaries. A topic where there's been a lot of changes. It's very important that you listen to what I'm telling you now so you don't misinterpret the data. The Shadow Priest legendaries can be ranked in a lot of different ways, depending on talents, amount of targets, fight length, and so on. Because of that, the How to Priest guys have created a list of weighted damage. What this means is that they have combined all possible scenarios into one chart. If you want more details on the math behind it or the conditions for the values, check out the post on how to priest, there'll be a link in the description. In that post you'll also be able to find rankings for pure single targets, surrender to madness and so on. As you can see, Zephyrus is now king. Zephyrus on top is with 12% uptime. If you proc it on cooldown, you will have 33% uptime, so the potential for Zephyrus is insane. Risk got nerfed, they dropped a bit, head got buffed, so it's actually pretty good. Might actually see you some progress, kinda like how Pride did this tier. Keep in mind that all the legendary rankings are done in comparison to each other, and because of that, and the close values in between each legendary, your character might actually gain DPS increase from lower ranking legendaries, because you have better off pieces, the possibility to get better stats, different foreset and so on. For more information, ask away in the comments below or check out the link in the description. Advanced gameplay. I've tried to visualize the void form rotation. One important thing to notice is the change at 145% haste. Because of the way Void Bolt and Mind Blast scales with haste, you'll go from 2 globals between each Void Bolt to 1. As you can see, I've tried to highlight Mind Flay with a green border. This is what I call the flex spot in the rotation. Mind Flay is a very small part of our damage and insanity regen, so instead of casting Mind Flay, you have the option and flexibility to do other things. Anything from dotting up other targets, casting power with shield, to moving around on high movement fights. You should never miss any Void Balls though. It's very important that you use it on cooldown, especially for priority damage. If there's any priority damage, missing Void Balls for multi-dotting other targets is a huge DPS loss and is considered whoring. Instead of using the Void Bolt or Mind Blast rotation spot, it's very important that you consider using the Mind Flay spot. To give an example, take a look at Relics. If you have the legendary wrist, it's a DPS increase to DPS the scrubbers that spawn halfway into the fight, but since the scrubbers damage is excluded from locks, there's really no point in whoring them. The only reason you dot them up is to gain single target damage. So in the Relics example, you would be replacing your Mind Flay global with multi-dotting the scrubbers, but you would still keep Void Bolting and Mind Blasting and cooldown on the main target. So the lesson to learn here is that you should always be using Void Bolt and Mind Blast on cooldown, and use your Mind Flay globals to multi-dot new targets. If the goal is to do as much damage as possible and there is no priority damage, replacing Mind Blast would be a DPS increase as well. Moving on to Power Infusion. The different bars visualize timelines where the purple bar is Void Form and the orange bar is Power Infusion. There's 3 different ways to use Power Infusion. You can either use it too late, where you'd come out of Void Form and still have Power Infusion. This is the worst thing you can do. The second option is to use it too early. While this is a lot better than option 1 and necessary in some situations where you need it up for later in the fight, it's still a DPS loss, and the goal should always be to line up with Power Infusion while the end of Void Form, as shown in the third option, the Perfect Power Infusion. While the concept of the Perfect Power Infusion is easy to understand, it's not quite as easy to execute at a high rate of success. Learning how to time your Power Infusion is most of the time trial and error. It's gonna take a lot of time and it's gonna vary depending on procs, bloodlust timing, fight mechanics, movement, etc. There is a rule of thumb though, and it's quite useful in many situations where you don't have the time to practice it. If bloodlust is used on pull, use Power Infusion when there's 12 seconds left on bloodlust. Again, it's gonna depend on your gear, legendaries, etc., but go give it a try, you might gain some pretty good results. What about Shadow Fiend? Shadow Fiend is in a bit of a tricky spot right now because of artifact traits extending duration. But the point is still the same, you want to keep up your Shadow Fiend for the last X amount of seconds of Void Form. Depending on how many traits you have, this will change. If you follow the PI rule of thumb, you can use Shadow Fiend at the same time, because this means you will have Shadow Fiend up for the last 12 seconds of Bloodlust, and while you have all the other haste effects from Void Form and PI. Shadow Fiend timing is gonna change with the patch though, and the information is not quite there yet. It is gonna change even more if the tier 20 set bonus stays as it is on the PTR right now. Depending on PTR builds and set bonuses from Blizzard, keep an eye on their forums. I'm sure there's gonna be available information that's gonna help you with your Power Infusion and Shadow Fiend usage. This is all for me in this video guide. I hope you enjoyed it and found at least some of it useful. If you did find the video useful or have constructive feedback, use the comment section below the video. If there's other areas of mastering the Shadow Priest you'd like me to go in the future, let me know as well.